The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani. And that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, joinetradio.com, where they keep you inspired and informed, and they broadcast Black Focus Radio daily, noon to 2 p.m., okay? Also, catch Black Focus Radio on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And while you're out there on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as a matter of fact, on all of those platforms, I want you to do that. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And also, one other thing that's becoming very, very important. Join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It is the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins as how we address ourselves and using a derogatory slur to our own people is a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, I like to say, just don't say it, okay? Got a lot of stuff to talk about today. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, as we do every week. I also want to remind you, before we get started, about my book, Blue Chip Down, that will be out here around September 1st. It will be available on Amazon as well. You can buy it direct from me. Just let me know about it. I will autograph it if you buy it direct from me. And also I want to thank everybody who has been buying The Pain of Vengeance. I am very excited about that. I sent out about 15 copies over the weekend and autographed them as well. So if you'd like an autographed copy, don't hesitate to hit me up. You can currently right now buy The Pain of Vengeance. And of course, you can also buy Blue Chip Down at a 30% discount that will be out September 1st. Okay? Now, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're certainly going to do Black Facts. We're going to talk about what we were doing when we were teens and what the teens are doing today, because I thought it was very important. I ran across a video. It was As We See It, that was filmed at my high school, and I'll get into that here a little bit later on. And it made me think about some of the things that are happening around these so-called new dress codes and all these other things, and why these young people are upset. And of course, there's another article that has recently come out about why a lot of corporations are no longer hiring 20-somethings. All of this could be related. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Also, let's see what else we have on our agenda today. By the way, y'all, I have my little script here, so I always tell you all to make sure that you get your script. Let's see. We want to talk about the bill that was introduced in New York legislature about giving consumers 10% if they do self-checkout. I think that's a great idea. We'll talk about that. I want to make sure I try to talk a little bit about Jalen Brown. He's been on the agenda for the last couple of weeks, and I've never gotten around to him. But there are some things that he has said as of late that I think we all need to start paying attention to. This young man, you want to talk about leadership, this young man is leading. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If we get an opportunity, we'll get into some of the Trump mess, some things that Neil Gorsuch just said as well. And maybe, just maybe, we'll do an update with Nolan Wells. We'll see how all of that flows and how the show goes today. Okay? So before we do anything else, let's do Black Facts.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about the Confederacy. Okay? And it's amazing. There was an article that I posted on my wall, on a Facebook wall, about 4 or 5 days ago, and it pertained to how the white people in the Confederacy tried to change history by suggesting that that the history, or I should say, slavery was based on Egyptian slavery. Okay, and I've always said for a long time that is just a bunch of crap. And then, of course, if those of you who are Bible thumpers, look, there's a reason why Joseph was allowed to become a king, even though he was at one point enslaved. Okay, so if you believe in that portion of the Bible, but the bottom line is this. Here's some interesting thing. And by the way, that article that I posted was from the Smithsonian. Okay. And the Smithsonian, when I went back to the article on my wall, when you click on it, it has been blocked. So then I had to go out and find the article again on the Smithsonian, and we'll get into that here in just a moment, okay? But here's some interesting thing. What did the Confederacy stand for? All right. Rather than interpreting, let's go directly to the words of the Confederacy Vice President Alexander Stephens. In his cornerstone speech on March 21st, 1861, he stated, "The Constitution rested upon the equality of the races. There was an error. Our government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstones rest upon great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition." This, our new government, is the first in its history of the world based upon great physical, philosophical, and moral truths. Okay? Here's another question. But people keep saying heritage, not hate. They think purpose of the flags and monuments are to honor Confederate soldiers, right? A vast majority of Confederate flags flying over government buildings in the South were first put up in the 1960s. I bet y'all didn't know that, did you? During the Civil Rights Movement. So for the first 100 years after the Civil War ended, while relatives of those who fought in it were still alive, the Confederate flag wasn't much of a symbol at all. But when Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis were marching on Washington to get civil rights in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965 passed, leaders in the South felt compelled to fly Confederate flags and put up monuments to honor people who had no living family members and had fought in the war that ended a century ago. Their purpose in doing this was to exhibit their displeasure with black people fighting for basic human rights that were guaranteed to them by the 14th and 15th Amendments, but being withheld by racist policies and practices. There's more. But if we take down Confederate statues and monuments, how will we teach about and remember the past? Monuments and statues pose little educational relevance, whereas museums, the rightful place for the Confederate paraphernalia, can provide more educational opportunities for students and citizens to learn about our country's history. The Civil War is important to learn about and will always loom large in social studies curriculum. Removing monuments from public places and putting them in museums also allows us to avoid celebrating and honoring people who believed that tens of millions of black Americans should be legal property. There's more. But the Confederate flag symbol means something different to me. Really? And individuals aren't able to change the meaning of symbols that have been defined by history. When I hang a Bucks flag over my house, to me, the Bucks might represent the best team in the NFL, but to the outside world, they represent an awful NFL team. Since they haven't won a playoff game in 18 years, I can't change that meaning for everyone who drives by my house because it has been established for the whole world to see. If a Confederate flag stands for generic rebellion and Southern pride to you, your personal interpretation forfeits any meaning once you display it publicly, as its meaning takes on the meaning it earned when a failed regime killed hundreds of thousands of Americans in an attempt to destroy America and keep black people enslaved forever. We're just asking questions and answering them. But my uncle posted a meme that said Civil War Confederacy was about states' rights and not slavery. A state's right to what? Everyone is offended about everything these days. Should we take everything down that offends anyone? The Confederacy literally existed to go against the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the idea that black people are human beings that deserve to live freely. It doesn't upset or offend you. If that doesn't upset or offend you, you're un-American. Taking these down goes against the First Amendment and freedom of speech, right? No, anyone can do whatever they want on their own private property, on their social media. Taking these down in public or having private corporations like NASCAR ban them from their properties has literally nothing to do with the Bill of Rights. Y'all get this, right? One other part to this black fact is I want to go to that article that I mentioned about the Smithsonian, because it's very important that we understand this. We've got a few more minutes. Let's see, the history of ancient Egypt. Let's see, how white Southerners distorted the history of ancient Egypt to justify slavery in the U.S. When Napoleon Bonaparte, and this is from the Smithsonian, this is the article that I posted on Facebook, and then all of a sudden when I went back to the link, it was dead. And then I actually went to the Smithsonian website, and it wasn't coming up on the Smithsonian website. Now, I want to be clear here, because remember last week we talked about the fact that Donald Trump has put up a sign in front of the Smithsonian saying that, suggesting that the information in this museum was false. A lot of it was false. Okay, this is white people trying to rewrite their history, and they really can't. They're trying hard, but they can't. So I wanted to read this article because I thought it was very important that we paid attention to how they tried to justify slavery. When Napoleon Bonaparte embarked on the military expedition to Egypt in 1798, he took with him a team of scholars, scientists, and artists. Together, they produced the monumental Description de l'Egypte, a massive multi-volume work about Egyptian geography, history, and culture. At the time, the United States was a young nation with big aspirations, and Americans often viewed their country as an heir to the great civilizations of the past. The tales of ancient Egypt that emerged from Napoleon's travels became a source of fascination to Americans through different ways. In the slaveholding South, ancient Egypt and its pharaohs became a way to justify slavery. The abolitionists and African Americans, biblical Egypt served as the symbol of bondage and liberation. As a historian, I study the 19th century Americans, from Southern intellectuals to black abolitionists, used ancient Egypt to debate questions of race, civilization, and national identity. My research traces how a distorted image of ancient Egypt shaped competing visions of freedom and hierarchy in the deeply divided nation. Let's see here. Now, as we go through this article, what you'll see is, and if you remember, there's a reason why Memphis is named Memphis. Okay? It's named after that particular area of the country. In the slaveholding South, ancient Egypt and its pharaohs became a way to justify slavery. For abolitionists and African Americans, biblical Egypt served as a symbol of bondage and liberation, as I just said. Okay, there was no reason pro-slavery businessmen and thinkers were energized by the prospect of American Egypt. Many Southern planters imagined themselves as guardians of a hierarchical and aristocratic system, one grounded in land ownership, tradition, and honor. As Alabama newspaper William Faulkner put in 1860, He and his fellow white Southerners belong to a race who have established law, order, and government over the earth. Where that came from, I have no idea. Okay, that's just... to these individuals, Egypt represented an archetype of great hierarchical civilization. Older than Athens and Rome, Egypt conferred a special legitimacy. And just like the pharaohs, the white elites of the South saw themselves as the stewards of this prosperous society sustained by enslaved labor. Leading pro-slavery thinkers like Virginia socialist theorist George Fitzhugh, South Carolina lawyer and U.S. Senator Robert Barnwell Rhett, and Georgia lawyer and politician Thomas R. Cobb all invoked Egypt as an example to follow. These Egyptian monuments show Negro slaves in Egypt at least 1,600 years before Christ, Cobb wrote in 1858, that they were the same happy Negroes, and this day is proven by their being represented in a dance 1,300 years ago before Christ. See, what he didn't say is those statues were Negroes. Those statues of pharaohs were Negroes. So was the Sphinx. Okay. But this view of history didn't exactly square with reality. Slavery did exist in ancient Egypt, but most enslaved people had been originally captured as prisoners of war. The civilization never developed a system of slavery comparable to that of ancient Greece or Rome, and servitude was neither race-based nor tied to plantation economy. The mistaken notion that Egypt's great monuments were built by enslaved individuals largely stems from ancient authors and the biblical account of the Hebrews. Later popular culture, especially Hollywood, depicts epics would continue to advance this misconception. Nonetheless, 19th century Southern intellectuals drew on the imaged Egypt to legitimize slavery as an ancient and divinely sanctioned institution. Even after the Civil War, which ended in 1865, nostalgia of these myths of ancient Egypt endured. In the 1870s, former Confederate officer Edward Fontaine noted that veritable specimens of black woolly-headed Negroes are represented by the old Egyptian artists in chains as slaves and even singing and dancing as they have seen them in southern plantations in the present century. But due to their place among world's great civilizations, Southerners had to reconcile a troubling fact. Egypt was located in Africa. And by the way, it still is. The ancestral land of those enslaved in the U.S. In response, an intellectual movement called the American School of Ethnology, which promoted the idea that races had separate, unequal origins to justify black inferiority and slavery, to set out whiten Egypt. In a series of texts and lectures following, the movement portrayed Egypt as a slave-holding civilization dominated by white people. They pointed to Egyptian monuments as proof of the greatness that a slave society could achieve. They also promoted a scientific discredited theory of polyganism, which argued that black people descended from the biblical Adam, but did not descend from the biblical Adam, but from some other source. Richard Colfax, the author of the 1833 pamphlet Evidence Against the Views of Abolitionists, insisted that the Egyptians were decidedly of Caucasian variety of men. Most mummies, he added, bear not the most distant resemblance to the Negro race. Physician Samuel George Morton's cranial agiotacopy, an 1844 study of Egyptian skulls, reinforced this view. He argued that skulls mirrored those of Egyptians in size and shape. In doing so, noted the Charleston Medical Journal in 1851, Morton established that the Negro, his true position as an inferior race. The Negro question was the one I wish to bring out. Denouncing America's pharaohs. This distorted vision of Egypt, however, wasn't the only one to take hold, and the U.S. abolitionists saw this history through a decidedly different lens. In the Bible, Egypt occupies a central place, mentioned repeatedly as the land of refuge, most notably for Joseph, but also as a nation of idolatry and as the cradle of slavery. The episode of the Exodus is perhaps the most famous reference. The Hebrews enslaved under the oppressive Pharaoh are freed by Moses, who led them to the promised land, Canaan. This biblical image of Egypt as a land of bondage deeply shaped 19th century moral and political debates. For many abolitionists, it was the ultimate symbol of tyranny and human oppression. In the hours before President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, black people could be heard singing in front of the White House, "Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell Jeff Davis to let my people go." Black Americans seized upon the biblical parallel. They viewed Confederate President Jefferson Davis as a contemporary Pharaoh, with Moses still the prophet of liberation. African American writers and activists like Phyllis Wheatley and Sojourner Truth also invoked Egypt as a tool of emancipation. In every human breast, God has implanted a principle, which we call love and freedom, Wheatley wrote in a 1774 letter. It is impatient of oppression and pants of delivery. And by the leave of our modern Egyptians, I will assert that the same principle lives in us. Yet Southern infatuation of Egypt shows how antiquity can always be recast to serve the powerful, and it's a reminder that the past is far from neutral terrain, that there is rarely, if ever, a ceasefire in wars over history and memory. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that Black Fact. And there was a reason why I'm doing that, because there is a move afoot today to rewrite history. And in that article, and that's from the Smithsonian, by the way, in that article, you can see that those ignorant white folks attempted to rewrite history in order to justify the means of slavery. And that's why we have to be careful. And that's why I tell people all the time that history is so important. We have to know our history and understand our history. And even though it may be uncomfortable to some people, it still has to be said. And we can't allow white people who feel guilty or white people who are upset because their little children may understand and begin to realize that they were some terrible people, that we need to rewrite history. We're not going to let that happen. And as I often like to say, we're not going back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. When the game becomes bigger than football, demanding change is the only way to win. Hi, I'm Dante Sinkay. I'm wrapping up the last few edits of my new novel, Blue Chip Down. It's a political sports thriller surrounding real-life situations available for purchase this September. I spent 15 years in sports media and championed the rights of amateur athletes getting paid. Today, through NIL, that's a reality. Recently on social media, I created a meme with black athletes stating, "If I can't vote in your state, I won't play in your state." Black athletes have always used the sports platform to highlight injustice in America and around the world.
Greats like Jesse Owens in the 1936 Olympics, to John Carlos and Tommy Smith raising the Black Power sign in the 1968 Olympics. And who can forget the greatest, Muhammad Ali, trumpeting black causes wherever the opportunity presented itself. Most recently, the 2015 Missouri football team provided prima facie evidence exhibiting black athletic power. Blue Chip Down is not a novel created to capitalize on current political strife. It's been in the works for over a decade, awaiting its relevance. Now is that time. It's centered around Amon-Ra Fuqua, the #1 high school recruit who ignites a movement demanding justice for fellow athletes and his people while colliding with corruption, politics, race, and power. This is a message to black athletes. There's something bigger than dribbling and scoring touchdowns. Pre-order Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today and save 20% before its official release. Click the enclosed link to order my new novel, Blue Chip Down by Dante Sinkay today. Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us. If you'd like to join the show, send me an email at blackfocusradio@gmail.com. Don't forget to go ahead and get your pre-release copy of Blue Chip Down. I think you're going to like that, especially if you're from Little Rock Central, okay? And speaking of which, this segment I want to talk about something that came across my wall last week. And by the way, thank you, Kenneth Muntz, for posting this. It's a video piece called As We See It. And it was about Little Rock Central, my high school. Of course, if you know the history, Little Rock Central was the home of the Little Rock Nine, and they were the first kids to integrate a public school in 1957. And of course, it went all around the world and the country. The rest of history. I knew a lot of those people. I knew a lot of their younger kin because we all grew up together as well. But I found it interesting, and the reason I want to bring this up because this past week there was a controversy that was rolling across the black communities. Okay, and it had to do with some of the HBCUs, and HBCUs have instituted a dress code, and that dress code has to do with you not being able to wear bonnets to class. You can't wear do-rags to class. You can't wear pajama bottoms and all this other revealing clothing that you're beginning to see. And I will tell you that I applaud that movement. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And a lot of young black people are upset. And when I watch that piece as we see it, the fascinating thing about it, and if you get an opportunity, go out and just watch it. It's about a 5 to 6 minute piece. It talks about Little Rock Central. It talks about Morris Holmes, who in 1974 was elected, who was the black principal at Little Rock Central, which was groundbreaking. He was there through my sophomore year in 76. And also, by the way, shout out to my boys, Keith Curry and Carl Daniel, who there's just a little 2-second clip of both of them in that video. And we were sophomores at the time. And just look at how the people in that video are dressed. Okay? We were dressed in, and by the way, by the time we became seniors in high school, we would wear suits to school. We would wear ties to school because we felt like how we looked was important. How we dressed for success. So this segment is more about what we were doing at 18 to 21 as opposed to what young people today are doing at 18 to 21. Okay? Now, I want to pull up this dress code because, see, these people who are upset didn't apparently realize that the dress code particularly, and they're talking about is Tuskegee, but there seems to be a movement around the country in HBCUs to not just institute a new dress code, but to be more stringent as far as the dress codes. In other words, these codes have always been in effect, but they were allowed to fall off for whatever reasons. I can't answer that question. At the time that I was at Arkansas Baptist College, those young people would wear anything to class. You could see, I got to see more butt. I got to see more butt at Arkansas Baptist College than you do at a zoo. I'm just gonna be real with you. The young ladies were just, it's like they literally didn't wear clothes. They didn't wear bras. They didn't wear underwear. They'd come in their pajamas. It was embarrassing, to say the least. And look, it's even more embarrassing that you see that on the streets of our cities on a regular basis. So these schools now are coming back and saying, hey, look, there's a way that you should, look, if you're saying to me, and this is my editorial on this, if you're saying that schools should be teaching young people how to live in the adult society, not just in academics, but in how to behave, shouldn't that apply to their dress? I think so. So to be upset with these schools because they have decided that they no longer want to, that these people no longer want to abide by, I guess, the norm, is ridiculous. Michael Harriot posted a piece last week. He said, what if I told you that Tuskegee actually didn't actually change its dress code? All right. And they didn't. Now, I don't know if you know who Michael Harriot is, but he is a pretty dang good writer. And I'm just going to pull up this dress code. By the way, this was from 2021. Okay? So this is what I'm saying about you all are upset about things that are irrelevant at this point. And it goes back to what I initially started this segment of, what we were doing at that age as opposed to what you all are doing at this age. And it's night and day. Okay. Dress code policy for students. This is from Tuskegee, 2021. It's always been in their code of conduct, by the way. The purpose of this policy is to provide the students with general dress code parameters. It is not intended to overly prescriptive, but it's designed to ensure decorum appropriate to a university environment. The following guidelines are established. Dress standards at Tuskegee University require that students are dressed in good taste at all times. Students are not permitted to wear sleepwear outside the residence halls. Do you hear me? Men are not permitted to wear headwear. That includes do-rags, stocking caps, bandanas, baseball caps, and any other head paraphernalia inside buildings. Women are not permitted to wear baseball caps inside buildings. Men are required to wear their pants on their waist, no sagging pants in academic facilities. Any style of dress that distracts or takes away from the teaching learning process in school classroom will not be tolerated. Students are expected to dress in a neat manner and make the appropriate selections for the time, occasion, and place. So what y'all mad about? You see, this is my point, is that y'all are mad about stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. Y'all are mad about stuff that is irrelevant to the point. And the reason I'm talking about this is because when I saw that piece at Little Rock Central in 1970s, it was from 76 to 79. It's called As We See It. Go and look at it. It is on my wall. Look at how we are dressed. Okay? Look at how we are dressed. We were in shirts. We were in ties. We were all dressed for success. So you walking around with bonnets on your head and all of that stuff is ridiculous. And it made me think about some things, that here are things that you guys are arguing about. Here are things that you guys are fussing about that is irrelevant to what you need to be concerned about. There's another article that I pulled up, and I'm gonna read you part of this article, because this speaks to why you all aren't being hired. This speaks why you all can't get a job. This speaks why you can't keep a job, because you just don't care. You are privileged. You think everybody owes you something. You don't even appreciate the gains that were fought for, so you can even walk around the way you look today. So here's an article. This is by Forbes magazine. 1 in 6 companies reluctant to hire Gen Z workers, citing laziness and lack of professionalism. As new graduates flood the job market, many face an uphill battle with skeptical employers. The new data show 1 in 6 U.S. companies are hesitant to hire workers in their 20s, citing concerns like laziness, unprofessionalism, and poor communication skills. Now, this brings me to an article that I saw last week where this young black woman was upset that she went to an interview in shorts, okay? In shorts that was, well, let's just say they were shorts. Now, I don't know what y'all thinking, but if you show up at my interview where you want a job and you're going to show up in short pants, you're not getting that job. And she was mad. She was upset because they refused to hire her based on her dress. And she wanted to try to paint that particular company as some bad company. No, girlfriend, you didn't get it. In fact, you didn't get the memo. As a lot of you young people are not getting it. Look, my company has a certain decorum. All right. If you're going to work for my company, then you're going to adhere to the rules and regulations of my company. That means that you're going to dress, you're going to dress professionally. You're not going to show up with your butt all out. You're not going to show up with your breast all out. You're not going to be doing any of those things that is going to take away from my business environment. A lot of you young people don't get that. But let me continue. A survey by Intelligent, a career-focused website for young people, found that 17% of companies were reluctant to hire those in their 20s, and 3/4 were dissatisfied with recent college graduates. This year, 60% of companies even terminated young hires for being unprepared and unprofessional, and 1 in 7 companies may stop hiring new grads by 2025. So that means that this article has been out over a year. Over a year. Y'all get this? Many recent college graduates are often unprepared for a less structured environment, workplace cultural dynamics, and the expectation of autonomous work. In other words, I give you an assignment, you don't do it, you couldn't complete it. Okay, part of that is some of y'all can't read. Some of y'all just got passed along. You know how I know that? Because I've been watching this guy on YouTube as he's been across the country. And he's been approaching young black kids and young white kids too. And he presents them with a sentence. They can't read the damn sentence. And you know, I was proud the other day because I saw him and he had approached 4 young black men. And he asked them, can y'all read? Every one of them said, yeah, I can read. I can read. Now, he always opens up his piece with that question. Can you read? And everybody, yeah, I can read. I remember one girl talking about an engineer, mechanical engineering. Okay, her 3rd year, and was offended that he even asked her, could she read? And he presented this piece to her. It was just a sentence. She couldn't read the damn sentence. And then got mad, talking about he was trying to trap her. Okay? But these 4 young black men that he approached, they read fantastically. And even one guy, and I can't remember the sentence, but one of the words in the sentence was gauche. And he said, he admitted, he read the sentence and he pronounced it gouche. Okay? But at least he completed the sentence and he read it very well. And he admitted after, he said, I've never seen that word before. Okay? So he learned something that day. But the point I'm trying to make to you is a lot of these young people don't even read. They can't read. They're being passed along. Look, I would say, well, this is my country that they're going to be governed. But it's not my country. I'm 65 years old. I've lived longer, or I should say, I have more time behind me than I have ahead of me. So the world that these young people are going to be ruling in, going to be growing up in, going to be working in, is in dire straits. It's in dire straits, man. It's crazy, man. It's just unbelievable how this thing is playing out. Okay, let me continue. All right. The survey highlights vexing questions about generational dynamics, workplace expectations, and the flexibility of hiring managers to greet Gen Z in the middle. Let's see. It says, why are young professionals struggling? And you look, it's being kind, because I'm not going to even call them young professionals. You can't be a professional if you don't understand what professionalism is. One explanation is that Gen Z workers often reject corporate life, especially when it comes to tasks they see as unimportant. Tech entrepreneur Joe Procosio noted in a recent Inc. editorial that many young workers are frustrated with being assigned mundane tasks instead of meaningful work. Well, you know, that might be wonderful. But here's the one thing. Here's an industry that I started in that they said you always got to pay your dues. In fact, it's what I'm doing right now. You call it podcasting, but I call it radio. I've been in the radio business for close to 40 years. Okay? And this is true of most businesses. All right? That when you are first hired in a business, you have to pay your dues. That's what was told to me when I first got into the radio business, is that if you want to be in this business, you've got to pay your dues. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. All right. And I had to do that. Here's what I had to do. I had to work multiple jobs as a production assistant. I had to get newspapers. I had to get coffee. I had to do all kinds of things before I moved up and ultimately got to the golden realm, I should say, or the golden microphone, and that was having my own show in Nashville, Tennessee on Morning Drive for 14 years. But there was a lot of work before that point. These young people don't want to do or pay their dues. They want to come in and make the same amount of money as someone who's been there 10, 15, 20 years. That's not how it works. Okay? So you all got a problem. And as I said earlier, and I'll continue this after this segment, we're going to move some other stuff back, because I want to make sure you all understand that what you all are doing today, particularly in the black community, is not what we were doing in the black community. Okay? And you say you're pro-black. Are you really? Back in a moment. You're listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Attention entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and soon-to-be 501c3 organizations. My name is David W. Coleman, and I want to ask you a question. Are you looking for funding for your business or organization? The new year is upon us, and it's time to get those grant proposals ready. Deadlines for submittals will arrive quickly, and I can help you put your best business foot forward. There are multiple funding sources available to assist you in completing your mission. You just need to know where to look. If you are new to proposal writing and need tips on where to search for funding, this seminar is for you. I'll help you demystify some of the myths relating to grant writing. I'll give you great proposal writing tips to help you get your submission in the A-pile. I'll point you to funding sources that most people ignore when pursuing assistance. It doesn't matter if you are new to the game or a veteran in this space. I have no doubt there is information you can utilize to get the dollars flowing to your business or organization. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but tried and effective methods to be successful. If you want to know more, respond with the word grants in the comments below, and I will send you information on the very next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar. In the meantime, keep looking for that funding, and I'll see you at the next Grants and Federal Assistance Seminar.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. We've extended our previous segment because I think it's important for us to understand that what we were doing at 18 and up through the 20s is not what these young people are doing today. And you might say, well, Dave, times have changed. It was different back then than it is today. Well, maybe you could say that, but at the end of the day, being a professional, growing up to become an adult, is still the same. Whether you believe it or not. You still got to grow up. You still got to pay bills. You still got to get a job. You still got to raise a family. You got to be able to feed your family. And look, when we were growing up, 18, when I left at 18, I didn't go back. Hello? I went back to live maybe a year. All right? But after that, boom, I was gone. These young people are living with their parents for years. And mom and dad say, well, I ain't gonna let my young person be out there. Okay, this is part of the reason that they're not growing up and being productive citizens in society. But I want to focus something else on young people, because I talk a lot about the history of our people. And I say our people, I'm meaning black people. You know, when our people were growing up in the 60s and the 70s, what were those 18, 19, 20, well, let me take that back. What were those 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids doing and up? Because I got to include them, because y'all do realize that the Children's Crusade, some of those kids were 9 years old that were fighting for civil rights. Did y'all understand that? Do you understand that most of the people that fought for civil rights were in their teens? They were freshmen and sophomores in college. Do y'all understand that? What are y'all doing? I'm talking about you, today's young people. This is what we were doing, okay? And not only that, after those battles, because I went through school, I got in school, 67, 68, somewhere in there, first grade, moving forward. Our charge to keep was that legacy that was laid out before us. That's why that piece, what I talked about as we see it, was so important. Because when Dr. Holmes became the black principal, the first black principal of Little Rock Central, by the way, it was our job to make him look good. Hello? But it wasn't just our job. Even the white students that were there, when you listen to that piece, their goal was to make sure that Little Rock Central was the best. It was going to defy the stereotypes of 1957. That was our charge to keep. We were going to attend class. Now, let me tell you, it wasn't perfect. But the majority of the people that were there, and all while I was there, the black-white ratio was either 49-51 black, 51-49 white. It varied. When I graduated my senior year in 79, the ratio was 52-48 black. Okay? And all the time that I was there, particularly my senior year, and I got to be honest with you, as I think back about it, the 3 years that I attended Little Rock Central, there was never a fight about racism. There was never a racial fight. I don't even recall anybody using the N-word in a derogatory manner. Well, I shouldn't say in a derogatory manner because there were black people who used the word, and I thought then as I do now that the word is derogatory regardless of who uses it. But my point being is that we were trying to make sure that the stereotypes that had been created for black people, about black people, were myths. It was important for us. But what are y'all doing today? I understand that you don't really care about how people feel about you, but you have to feel something about yourself. I remember growing up, my mom wouldn't go out of the house if she had rollers in her head. I knew a lot of women like that. I know women today like that, who will not go out of the house if they have rollers in their head. They just would not do it. They wouldn't dare go out in their house gowns, even if they were taking you to school. But what do these women do today? They show up at parent-teacher conferences today in rollers and house gowns and pajamas, not even dressed. If you did that when we were growing up and somebody saw your mama dressed like that, oh, dude, you got the dozens laid on you. And not only that, it's embarrassing to your child. But you know, when the child sees it so much, it's no longer embarrassing. They think it's normal. In other words, see, when we were young, we set standards by which we would abide by. And those were important because we wanted to make sure that the white world could not launch those stereotypes against us. It was important for us to prove them wrong. Now, today's young people get upset about the same stereotypes, but instead of them trying to prove white people wrong, that your stereotype is not true and it doesn't apply to me, y'all buy right into it. So what we were doing was fighting for equal rights. We were fighting for voter rights. We were fighting just to be free. What y'all fighting for today? Right now going on in this country. You know, I read that article from the Smithsonian earlier in the show. And remember, I told you that Donald Trump had put up that sign suggesting or saying that a lot of the stuff in the Smithsonian is not correct. A lot of you all are walking around and don't even vote. A lot of you all don't even realize that there's a president and a movement in this country to put your asses on the back of the bus. There's a movement in this country to erase your history. There's a movement in this country to eliminate you as a black person from this country under the guise of immigration. There's a movement in this country to not only keep you from voting, but marginalize your voting. That's part of the reason I wrote Blue Chip down, because it's about that issue. And you all are not standing your ground. You're not even doing anything except killing one another. Now, let's be clear. We understand that white people are committing just as much or more killings with one another as black people are. We know that. At least we should know that. But my point is that we should be working together as a people. Let them kill off each other. Let them do the negative things that they're doing to one another. Whereas that we should be building. But instead, many of you all are walking around like you with the I don't give a blank attitude and not building anything. Letting your children grow like wild weeds, not disciplining them. And then when someone else tries to discipline them, you get mad and you want to go and fight that other person, when in all likelihood it was your child's fault. How many times? There was a white guy who was just sentenced about the Georgia school shooting. He got sentenced to 15 years because his son was 14 years old when he went and shot up that Georgia school. Now, this was a white guy. He went and shot up that Georgia school, right? And the dad and the boy had already been fantasizing about shooting and killing people. So what did the dad do? The dad went out and bought him an AK-47. And people say, oh, well, you can't blame the father for the son's mistakes. Well, in this case, you can. Now, that's extreme. But the point is that we as parents were put here to guide and direct these children. And they are failing left and right. And if you don't do something about it, you younger parents, if you don't do something about it, it's going to be a mess on your hands. It's going to be ridiculous because they are not even getting into the workforce. And when they get into the workforce, they're often fired. And then they come back and they want to live with you. And by the way, want to lay up and have baby after baby after baby. And you want to say, oh, well, these my grandbabies. I'm so proud of my grandbabies. Well, guess what? They're going to grow up and be the same way. Drug dealers, prostitutes, hustlers, whatever the case may be. Because based on that article that I read, corporate America is not going to hire him. Look, if you can't go to work and just do a mundane task and get paid that's free work. Why are you even trying to work? You go to some of these places now. I don't go to fast food restaurants, but I see stories all the time. These people are fighting customers. Now, I'll admit some of these customers are butts, to say the least. But come on. They're fighting customers, and then they get mad because the corporation fires you. Wonder why. There's a decorum that you got to keep. There's a decorum that you've got to keep. It's just important. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you all can get mad all you want. I don't care. But at some point, we got to start addressing this issue with our kids. Look, if these white kids want to be mediocre, then be mediocre. Let them be mediocre. They're still getting their jobs. We always say you got to stay 3 steps ahead of white people because they're going to push you back too. Now, why are you conforming to what these younger white people are doing or white kids are doing, thinking that you're going to be on their same level? You're not. Because they're going to get their jobs. Because white people are going to hire them. They've always been the DEIs of the world. 330,000 black females, according to statistics, have lost their jobs. I saw a meme the other day where there were 4 black women, and between the 4 of them, they had 9 degrees. And none of them had steady work, because they had been laid off. Black people, it's time to wake up. You can't do what white folks are doing. You got to be better. It's time to be better. And if Tuskegee or Arkansas Baptist or Spelman or whatever the case may be. By the way, if you go to Spelman or Morehouse, I bet those kids ain't walking around in their pajamas. Just saying. We'll take the top of the hour break. We'll be back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joinedradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanberry Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. It's the second hour. Appreciate you hanging in with me. I will tell you, coming up hopefully around the 1st of September, I should say around mid-September, we will be doing the show live. Robert Webb and I are going to get back on the air. We are working out the logistics right now. We're working on the engineer to try to figure out, because I'm in Baltimore, Robert is in Little Rock, and we want to stream the show to JoyNet live. So we're working out those logistics, and once we're able to do that, I'll let you know, and we'll let you know when the debut of Robert Webb and I are coming back to Black Focus Radio. So we're looking forward to that. So talking about a lot of things today. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And it's important for us to understand that there are a lot of things that are going on that is going to affect us. And I wanted to bring up a couple of other things here. This renowned photographer, I don't know if you all have seen this article, but renowned photographer, Stephen Williams, he's photographed people from all over the world. He was going to shop at a Louis Vuitton store. And when he tried to get in the door, they wouldn't let him in. Now, Stephen Williams is a black man, okay? He apparently has shopped at Louis Vuitton and bought things out of this store previously. They decided that they weren't going to let him in on this particular day. And they called security on him. And you can see him, and I posted this story on my wall, standing at the door, and security, by the way, security is a black guy, which is ironic. is questioning him as far as what he wanted. What was he planning to do? He said, I was planning to buy something out of the store, da, 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 da. My question to Stephen Williams and all of you people who tend to believe that you think you're better because you wear designer stuff, why are you buying this stuff when these white people don't want your money? Why aren't you creating your own brands? Remember FUBU, For Us, By Us? Remember that was what, back in the 90s? That business had to go out of business because black people wouldn't buy their stuff. But you're consistently taking your money to white businesses and they don't care about you. They don't. I'm just, throwing some stuff out there. Also, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on now in New York City. Well, New York as a whole, a state legislator has decided to introduce a bill that would give customers 10% back on all of their purchases. What's the catch? Well, here's the catch. That any store that requires you or asks you to do self-checkout, you should get 10% off of your total purchase. You should. Why not? Think about it. You're doing the work for those stores. So for instance, when I go into some of these places and they have kiosks, most of the time I don't do self-checkout. I remember when McDonald's first introduced it years ago, they had that little screen on the pole out there. And I went into a McDonald's, and it's been years ago because I don't eat at McDonald's anymore. But it was years ago, and I walked in and this brother came up to me who worked at McDonald's, and he walked up and said, hey, no, they were busy. And he walked up to me and said, hey, you can do self-checkout. And I said, no, that's okay. He said, oh, you don't know how to do it? I said, I'm a computer technician. I can handle computers. He said, well, here, come on over and I'll show you how it works. I said, no, thank you. He says, well, why? I said, because I don't work for McDonald's. And I looked at him sternly, and he got annoyed at me for telling him that I don't work for McDonald's. Just like if I go to a grocery store, unless I am in an extreme hurry, I'm going to stand in the line. I am. I don't work for these stores. You're not, look, does Walmart, when you do self-checkout at Walmart, do they invite you to the company Christmas party? I'm just asking. Do they? Do they give you an employee discount? I'm just asking. In other words, they have, and oh, by the way, you do realize now these companies are pulling back on self-checkout because they're realizing that they're losing millions of dollars because people are simply not scanning the stuff. Look, it may scan, it may not. They put it in a basket, they move on. And that happens a lot. I go to a local store here, and the other day we went in and I was in a rush because we were trying to get to a meeting, and they only had one cashier line open. Okay. And it was like 6 people in that cashier line. And we were trying to get to a meeting. It was my son and I, and he was trying to get to a meeting. So I didn't want to hold him up. So we did self-checkout. Okay. The self-checkout screwed up. Every other time we would scan something, it would mess up and the guy had to come over here and fix it. And then when we got ready to pay, instead of it taking my card, it wouldn't take my card, and I ended up having to go over to the service desk, and they had to transfer the data over to the service desk in order for us to pay. So this New York legislator has decided that, hey, if you're going to require people, the consumer who doesn't work for you, to do your job, then they deserve 10% discounts on everything they purchase. I think every legislature ought to do that. It's very important. It's very important. Because guess what? Here's what you all don't know. According to the particular article, those same employers who have limited checkers, they have made over $300 billion. Did you hear what I just said? So the money that they would be paying for cashiers, the insurance that they would be paying for cashiers, and the taxes that they would be paying for cash. They don't have to pay that anymore. So they've got a net savings of $300 billion. That's not me saying it. That is statistical data. Hello? So for that legislator to be advocating that, I'm all for it. I am all for it. Side note to what we're talking about, because it's about black economic power. It's about economic power, but more about black economic power. You all have heard by now, Ryan Clark was released by ESPN. Oh, by the way, have you noticed? I'm a big Marvel fan, but have you noticed how they are cutting the black scripts? They were talking about Blade coming back. They've cut that. Okay. They've cut the black Captain America. They've cut that. All of if they would cut Black Panther if in fact it had not earned so much money when it was first released. But all of the black scripts in Marvel has been discontinued. Y'all follow me? So here's my point. Jalen Brown just recently came out and said, hey, he said, Jalen Brown calls for black influencers to raise their voice and support their own community. We just here for entertainment purposes. Hello? I've been telling you, once you stop entertaining white people, things will change. That's the whole premise behind Blue Chip Down, is that we make more money for white people than they do for themselves, yet they don't treat us as human beings. And people upset that Ryan Clark was let go. Well, you know, it's my company. I can decide to fire you anytime I get ready. But here is the kicker. All that money that you NFL players have been throwing away at strip clubs and drugs and all this other stuff, why not come together and make your own sports network? Hello? Why don't y'all come together and really buy a quote unquote BET or whatever you want to call it, Black Sports Network, BSN? Because there's enough money of it. Look, they make money, ESPN, and look, I stopped watching or following ESPN years ago. Okay? I stopped watching it years ago because of Colin Cowherd. They're mad at Ryan Clark because Ryan Clark called out a white journalist who had never played sports before. They're mad because he checked them live on air. Okay? They're mad because he called out the white media. Remember the young man that committed suicide that was from LSU, and they said that he was the cause of a man being killed in a car accident when his particular car had nothing to do with it, and they rode this young man so bad that he ended up committing suicide. He was planning to go to the league, and of course the league wasn't going to touch him after that. Come to find out, when you go back and look at the video evidence, the young man's car never touched this guy. In fact, it wasn't him who even caused the accident. And Ryan Clark called him out on that. They didn't like that. Okay? White people on their network didn't like that. Okay? So they decided to get rid of Ryan Clark. Okay? They decided to get rid of Ryan Clark. Okay? So Ryan Clark is on some of these podcasts whining and complaining, and you know, I understand you being frustrated, and it was kind of wrong that they fired him the way he did, but they wanted to make an example out of him. They were showing in other words, Ryan Clark got buck broken right on national TV. Remember the Redskin who was killed at home, and I want to bring this up. Colin Cowherd really went down the wrong path. But it was interesting to note that all of these players were upset with ESPN. And I told you I got upset. This was years ago when Sean Taylor was killed. These are the stereotypes that a lot of these white journalists have with black players. Okay? Sean Taylor was killed in his home by he was robbed. Now, what you all may not know about the story of Sean Taylor is the fact that when he was robbed, the reason he was robbed was because he had given a birthday gift to one of his, I want to say a relative. They were at a birthday party. I want to say his sister. And some of the people that were invited to the party, this is why you need to be careful who you invite into your home. He had given her, it was a significant amount of money. Okay? So these young brothers saw this money and decided that they would go and rob Sean Taylor at his house. And they did. They ended up shooting and killing him. And of course, the news came out and everybody was upset. But Colin Cowherd, and it's part of the reason that I don't listen to a lot of white sportcasters anymore, especially their commentaries. I just don't. You know, he was on the air and he was talking about, well, you know, Sean Taylor, you know, a lot of these guys, they live a lifestyle and they have friends that cause them to be in dangerous situations. And I'm paraphrasing because it was years ago. But he basically was saying that the reason Sean Taylor was killed was because of the people that he ran with, which couldn't have been farther from the truth. So when the story came out that they were actually robbed, I wrote a lengthy letter to ESPN. Soon after that, by the way, not saying that my letter had anything to do with it, Colin Cowherd moved over to Fox because I think a lot of people wore his butt out by making that suggestion about Sean Taylor. See, they expect you to be gang members. They expect you to junk your money away. Part of the reason I love Lamar Jackson so much is because his mama is his agent. Jalen Brown is another one. They don't like Jalen Brown. These white people were floating the story that Jalen Brown thought he was the smartest person in the room, not understanding that Jalen Brown was the smartest person in the room. And that meant over the GM, over the owner, everybody in that Boston Celtics locker room, yes, Jalen Brown was smarter than they were. Okay? You don't do lectures and teach at Harvard if you're not smart. You don't graduate from Cal Berkeley if you're not smart. You don't do what was this major had to do with astrophysics or something like that? Yeah, he was the smartest person in the damn room. Yes, he was. Okay? So the problem that we have here is that they don't like black excellence. And what Jalen Brown said is that there's enough money. I say this all the time, my God. $2.1 trillion annually is generated in the black community. Yet less than 10% of that money goes to black businesses. Hello? When I did radio, did you know that black radio stations were paid less for their advertising than white radio stations? Did y'all know that? A white radio station in the same market, most of the time black radio stations had higher Nielsen ratings. They would be paid, let's say for instance, and I'll give you a number. Let's say $50 a spot for white radio stations, $25 a spot for black radio stations. Hello? I remember when I first moved back to Little Rock about 8 years ago. And I wanted to do my show, Black Focus Radio, on the local station, which was KOKY. By the way, which is owned by white people. And I sent the guy an air check, the program director at the time, and I can't remember what his name is. Or was at the time. He called me up and told me to come up and talk to him. I went up and talked to him. And he told me, he said, man, I like your show. but we can't put that show on this station. I said, why not? This is a black station. I talk about black issues. He said, well, I got to worry about my advertisers. I said, which advertisers are those? I knew which advertisers he was talking about, but I was being facetious. He was worried about his white advertisers. He wasn't concerned about getting black music out. He wasn't concerned about talking about black issues. This is part of the reason that a lot of these black shows talk about fluff. They talk about who's screwing who, who's married to who. They refuse to talk about issues that are going to directly affect black people and the black community. Every now and then they might talk about voting, but they are questioned by their white owners and their white program directors. Well, we don't want to stay on that too long now, okay? Remember, I told you I got into a tiff on social media in Nashville about this very thing, where this white politician was advertising on this black radio station. And the black people in Nashville, and this was just a month or so ago, the black people in Nashville were upset that this white politician, who had already vowed to follow Trump tooth, hook, line, and sinker, was now advertising on this white radio station. And the black program director was trying to defend it. And they said, we went all through the fairness doctrine and all this other stuff. And the bottom line is, a lot of those black people didn't realize that black station in Nashville, 92Q, is owned by white people. The same argument happened just about 2 weeks ago in Atlanta at V103. This politician, I think it's Rick Jackson, who's running for governor, was advertising on V103. And the black people in Atlanta was upset because he was allowed to advertise to black people on that station, which is supposed to be a black station. Yeah, it's black in programming, but it's not black in ownership. Here's my point. Why aren't you owning your own black radio stations? Why don't you, like all of you football players, pool your money together and say, hey, we're going to create a media conglomerate. We're going to do that, and we're going to make sure that we broadcast to our people. Why aren't you doing that? You got money. Instead of throwing it away at strip clubs, or throwing it away at women for baby after baby after baby, why don't you do that? Because it's needed. And not only that, you then could hire people. Not only are you, because see, here's the thing. One thing I know, especially about the media, when it comes to listenership, people are going to go to where the knowledge is. And a guy who has never suited up, not even in high school, trying to tell people how a particular player feels is ridiculous. Here's the one thing that I was careful of, and I played 3 years of college football. When I covered the Tennessee Titans, I was very careful in not trying to suggest that I knew what a professional athlete went through, because there's no way that I could say I did. I could tangentially approach it, but there's no way I could say, look, I couldn't tell you how much that money is and what they do with their money. I could tell you about a college athlete because I played college sports, but that was even pre-NIL. So you're mad at Ryan Clark because he decides to check you because you don't know what you don't know what you're talking about because you've never played. And a lot of you people out here are lay people who have never played a game, can sit back on and watch a game and say, I would have did this, I would have did that. You wouldn't have done crap because you've never played that game. You don't know what it's like to have a 200. Look, here's what really boggled my mind when I first started covering the Titans. I knew Eddie George was a big old boy, but when I first started covering the Titans, I went down on the field. They would let the media go down on the field 5 minutes before the game was over. And then once the game is over, some of the media gets on-field interviews. Eddie George was doing an on-field interview, and I was standing beside him. Now, I thought I was a pretty damn good player in college until I broke my neck. I paused because I was in shock. Eddie George was a running back who weighed close to 250 pounds. I later got to know Eddie a little bit more when meeting him in person, saw him in person, and guess what? He was big in clothes as well. You don't know what it's like to have that 250-pound running back running at you and you got to stop him. So my point to this in this segment, and I'm going to wrap it up, is that we got to be more conscious of the fact that there's plenty of money out there for us. We just got to start spending it for us. In other words, what's that old saying? If Muhammad don't go to the mountain will come to Muhammad, or something like that. Then we need to start making them come to us. Period. End of story. We'll take a break. We'll be back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today. Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. Hit me up on an email. That's blackfocusradio@gmail.com. Don't forget Blue Chip Down. You heard me refer to it a lot that last segment. And it's important for you to understand something here. I've said this for the longest, is that we can control our destiny with our bodies. They make money off of us with our bodies. Here, I saw a video the other day, and it was, I want to say it was in Japan, it was in Asia somewhere. If you've ever been to a black college football game, what is the highlight of that game? Yeah, the team you're rooting for, but what's the other highlight? It's your band, okay? It ain't nothing like going to see an HBCU and the battle of the bands. Nothing like it. I mean, they cut up. That's part of, look, people used to get up at halftime and go, hey man, I'm going to get some hot dogs. I'm going to get some something to drink. No, you stay out there for your band. Okay? I remember when UAPB and Tennessee State first started playing at the John Merritt Classic. And of course, my first cousin, John Graham, is the head of the UAPB band. Boy, what a battle. Of course, I saw Jackson State. I've seen Gremlin and Southern. I've seen so many HBCU games over the years. It's just fascinating. But now, in Asia, they're putting bands together that they are mimicking black bands, HBCU bands. And it's offensive. Because those people don't really give a damn about black people. They don't like black people. They're racist as hell. Those Asian groups that come over here and sound like black R&B, I don't listen to them. I don't support them. Y'all do. Oh, they sound just like New Edition. Oh, they sound like KC and JoJo. You don't realize that they're trying to, and look, they are displacing you in R&B. And they try to make the argument, well, there are not many black people who sing R&B now. So we're changing that style. All the black people are singing rap and gangster rap. Well, guess who's steering you into gangster rap? White producers, white record owners, white radio stations. So when I wrote Blue Chip Down, it was important for me to try to send a message. And I'm still in the middle of editing it. Well, I'm not editing it. What I'm doing now, I'm putting together the audio book. And as I read the book, it's really become apparent to me that there's a message that I wanted to send. I knew it writing it, but I wanted to make sure that the message that I was trying to send is in your faces. And that is, we need to stop letting them make money off of our black bodies. Jalen Brown said it best. Long as we're entertaining them, they good. They don't want you to be anything else but entertainment. That's why Donald Trump is attacking. That's why Donald Trump is attacking your history. That's why they don't want you to be in high places. They don't want you to be black and in the military. They want to make this a white nation. They've made that clear, folks. And that's why I'm so upset with our young people, because our young people are not getting this. You all think that what you have today it was automatic. It was by osmosis. It was a natural thing. No, it wasn't. People had to fight for you to be able to get what you're getting today. Jalen Brown said, "We're just here for entertainment purposes." We just here for entertainment purposes. So this segment, I want to remind you people who think Donald Trump, particularly, I'm not talking about white folks. I'm talking about black folks. Maybe you all can comprehend some of this. Let me just read something to you. Okay? All of you degreed black folks that are running around carrying Trump's water, let me ask you, would you have these positions if you had the same background as these white folks that I'm going to name here in just a second? Let me ask you. Trump graduated at the bottom of his class at Wharton School of Business. Let me say that again. At the bottom of his class at Wharton School of Business. What's the comparison to Barack Obama? You know his credentials. Okay? If Barack Obama had graduated at the bottom of his class, would he have ever been president? You know the answer to that. I don't have to give it to you. You know the answer to that. But here's more. Jim Jordan never took the bar exam. That's a pregnant pause. Here's another one. Rand Paul was never a board certified ophthalmologist. Yet he runs around in Congress stating that he was a doctor, that he's a doctor. He's never been certified as a doctor, let alone an ophthalmologist. He was an ophthalmologist. And last week, if you saw the Fauci testimonial, there was Rand Paul trying to chastise Dr. Fauci, who was a board certified doctor and who had been part of the epidemiology for decades. Rand Paul was trying to chastise him. Okay? Mike Johnson was the dean of a non-existent law school. He talks good. Well, I'm Mike Johnson, and I'm this and I'm that, and this is just terrible. What law school was that again that you were the dean of, Mike Johnson? Lauren Boebert. She tried 4 times to get her GED. Did you hear what I just said? Lauren Boebert took 4 times to get a damn GED, and she's a congresswoman. There's more. Carolyn Levitt had an undistinguished academic career at St. Aslam College. Jared Kushner's daddy paid $2 million to get him into Harvard. Those are DEI hires. So I'm just asking y'all the question, you Trumpites, you black ones. I'm not really concerned about the white ones, because I understand why most white people follow Donald Trump, and it has everything to do with racism. Period. End of story. By the way, I still haven't gotten that answer. I've asked 2 questions over the last month. What did black people do to white people to make them hate black people so much? Okay. And can you all find me multiple stories of a black person, a black police officer, shooting and killing a white suspect? I'm just asking. Here's more on your boy Donald Trump, because I think this is important for us to understand. He flew on Epstein's plane at least 7 times, pleaded the 5th more than 400 times in a single deposition. Nothing says innocent like refusing to answer a single question about his own business. Now, remember last week with Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci was pleading the 5th? Donald Trump said you must be guilty if you want to plead the 5th, yet he did it 400 times. Okay, 34 felony convictions, a record most people would call disqualifying, 91 criminal charges. But he's president of the United States. Accused of sexual misconduct or assault by at least 26 women, but sure, tell me again how he's a great guy. 6 corporate bankruptcies. The self-proclaimed greatest businessman alive somehow keeps running out of money. 5 draft deferments. Funny how the toughest guy in the room never actually showed up for duty. This is your boy here. Okay? I'm asking y'all because you say there's not racism in the country. What black man could have these credentials, and I'm not done, could have been president of the United States? 2 impeachments, 2 of his own companies convicted of criminal tax fraud, 1 fake university shutdown. Remember Trump University? paid $25 million to settle the Trump University fraud lawsuit because scamming people who believe in cost money eventually. Or let's see, a jury said it twice, so nobody could pretend it was a fluke. Ordered to pay $2 million for looting his own charity. He stole from his charity, in other words. Found liable for business fraud and originally slapped with a penalty of $450 million. First president in modern history to increase the deficit every single year of a full term. Kept the debt to GDP ratio above 100% for his entire first term. Presided over the largest single-day drop in the Dow Jones history. Set the record for the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Added roughly $2.2 trillion to the national debt. Pushed through the largest defense budget increase since World War II. Purged more than 300,000 federal employees. Okay? Pardoned nearly 1,600 January 6 rioters, who many of them attacked police. Sent the National Guard into American cities at a cost of $500 million. He owns tariffs that are projected to cost the average American household $2,500. Okay? I'm just asking. Hello? Oh, by the way, it didn't say anything about E. Jean Carroll, that he just had to pay $50 million that he didn't want to pay. And the latest thing is that the Republican Congress, this $1.8 trillion slush fund, or I should say $1.8 billion slush fund that they are trying to, that Donald Trump was trying to sue the IRS. He was suing himself and settling with himself. And I still hear people saying, well, they did him wrong. Well, it wasn't the IRS who released his tax returns. It was a third-party company. But then you're doing it's kind of like saying, okay, I'm going to sue my bank account because I owe myself money. It's weird, isn't it? I know. It is. You can admit it. You don't have to say it. It is. It is the most odd thing that I've ever seen in my life. But y'all follow him, black folks. Why y'all following this guy? Tell me. This is the biggest charlatan. There's more. You're paying what? Some places paying $7, $8 a gallon for gas. Remember what he asked the oil companies? Chevron posted a $12 billion in quarterly profits. That was up nearly 400% from last year. Okay. Exxon made $14.5 billion. That's about $160 million a day. All right. In 2024, he asked oil executives to raise $1 billion for his campaign while promising to deliver on their policy wish list. So let me ask you again, black folks. Y'all following him? Why? Oh, you said he gave HBCUs money? You all do know that money was allocated before he came into office. Let me ask you, how is it that you paying $4, $5, $6 a gallon in gas is helping you? Okay? How is it that he is destroying your history is helping you, black folks? Particularly you black conservatives. I just want to know, I'm trying to understand that logic. The reason I can't understand it because, see, I consider myself a logician, and that logic to me is illogical. You understand that, right? So you all tell me, black conservatives, what y'all saying that I'm not? I'm just asking a question because you all are really beginning to look very, very stupid. Let's take our last break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results.
Barbecue season is here and you're still using that 99-cent goop full of chemical derivatives and high fructose corn syrup for your sauce? Stop, please. Get to ribrub.com now and save your next cookout with an array of all natural rubs and sauces. Start with the Dynamic Rib Dust for seasoning and the Dynamic Rib Rub for flavor, and top off your grilled or smoked masterpiece with Dynamic Rib Juice. Don't forget the Dynamic Pepper Juice for just the right kick for those chicken wings. One other thing, you've got to try the delectably delicious Dynamic Rib Nuts. Can't decide? Order a Dynamic gift box and satisfy all of your cravings. Come on, give me your hand and let me take you to barbecue land at ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, and we'll show you how to bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh yeah.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to my favorite segment. It's called What We Must Do. It's the segment where we talk about issues throughout the show and talk about how we can use those issues to make our community better. Now, as a whole, I'd love the entire community to be better. But I'm mainly talking about the black community because we are the ones that are suffering. And we've got to understand that there are things that we must do inside our own community in order to make it better. So I talked a lot this show about Jalen Brown, and look, he's one of my favorite. Look, he plays for my favorite team now, which is the Philadelphia 76ers, along with my favorite player, LeBron James. But I liked him before that, even though I hated the Celtics. I always have hated the Celtics. I've always had an affinity of hatred for Boston, and it really goes back to a picture that was in my American history books years ago. You all have seen that picture, if you're old enough, of the white man stabbing the black man with the flag in Boston. And of course, all these white communities who were for busing in the South, but when black people came to the North, they didn't want black people going to school with their kids. All right, let me see if I can find that picture on Google. Let me do this real fast. Picture of white man stabbing black man with the American flag in Boston, Massachusetts, back in the 70s. Let's see if it comes up. Okay. Google is such a wonderful tool. It's here. Okay. It's Soiling Old Glory was the name of the picture. is a Pulitzer Prize winning photographs taken by Stanley Foreman during the Boston desegregation busing crisis in 1976. It depicts a white teenager, Joseph Rakes, assaulting a black man, lawyer, and civil rights activist Ted Landsmark with the flagpole bearing the American flag, also known as Old Glory. The image was taken by the Boston Herald American in Boston, Massachusetts on April 5th, 1976 during one of the series of protests against court-ordered desegregation. It ran on the front page. Okay, so go out and find it. Just look it up. Just go look it up. So my point is this, is that we've got to start paying attention. There's plenty of ways that we can look at our history, but we've got to make sure that in our community that we can start doing things that's going to build us. I'm sorry, I do a teenage survival kit, and I'm going to start talking about that more, where I'm asking our young people, who told you to lie that it was okay to go to prison? Who told you to lie that it was okay to poison your own community with your words, acts, and deeds? Who told you that? Who told you it was cool to walk around with your butt hanging all out with no belt on? When I did my rites of passage camps, and to show you how long this has been going on, I did my first rites of passage camp about 2007, 2008. One of the criteria was that you had to wear a belt. No underwear being shown. And if you didn't have a belt, we'd give you a rope like Jed Clampett and Ellie Mae back in the day, and Jeffro. All right? But who told you those lies? Who told you that it was okay to not excel, to be the dumbest kid in the class? I could understand if you have a learning disability. But back then when I had friends who were struggling with a particular course, I would help them. Or if I was struggling with a particular course, they would help me. Now, some of my friends couldn't help me because I was in higher classes than many of them. But my point is this, we have got to start excelling. We've got to start building up with knowledge. I go back to the piece I talked about, As We See It, at Little Rock Central. That school was about knowledge. And if you go back and if you go and look at its history, it has so many academic Americans, not just sports Americans, but academic Americans that have achieved the highest. In my teenage survival kit, I ask you, why is it okay that you think that you can be the dumbest of the dumb in the dumb box of rocks? You got a dumb box of rocks, and you're dumber than everybody else in that box of rocks. We got to start asking these questions, folks. We got to start teaching every day. Part of the reason I put together the Teenage Survival Kit is to teach. What I'm hoping with my book, Blue Chip Down, is that a lot of these young black college athletes, and what I'm going to try to do, and I hadn't figured it out yet, but I'm going to try to work out something where I can get this book to college HBCUs at a discount. I'm going to try to work out something where I can get the book to them at a discount so that I want young black athletes, and although the book is fiction, I want you to understand your worth. You think your worth is the amount of money that they're paying you in the NIL. No, my brothers and sisters, you're worth a lot more than that. That's why they want you on their campus. That's why they want you on your campus. So Blue Chip Down is written around the fact that I'm trying to point out to you that this is your worth. And there are forces at play who are trying to minimize your worth and make as much money as they can off of you and leave you in poverty. I love Jalen Brown because Jalen Brown said, hey, if you work for me, you can't be my friend. He talked about how these agents, they're talking about how they love these players and they want these players. And as soon as the player goes belly up, they don't know the player anymore. These agents have made millions off of these players, but these players, when they get in a rough spot, the agents have nothing to do with them. You all need to understand that. Do you care? Does it make a difference to you? It should. But y'all don't understand that. And that's the danger of all of this. We've got to start teaching every day. And like I said, I put the Teenage Survival Kit together around that time, 2006, somewhere in there. And it bothered me because for years I basically put it on the shelf. And obviously life happened with me. I was going through a lot of things as well. But what made me decide to bring the Teenage Survival Kit back, and what really prompted me, I ran across a video of the Black Male Symposium in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when I was doing that presentation. And I had seen that presentation before. And it made me realize, when you look around America today, that the same things that were happening then are happening now, and it's less mentorship than ever before, because they don't want me as a black man to mentor young black kids. They don't want black kids to be mentored at all, because they don't tell you that you are nothing more than a commodity, black kids. They don't tell you that you're nothing more than a side of beef or a side of a hog or a bushel of corn. That's how they look at you, because the private prisons are in business to make money. Do you know that there are private prisons who have sued states who have private prison contracts because those prisons were promised by states that they would help keep up the inmate population. They wanted the recidivism rate to be high, so those private prisons could continue to make money off of you. And now what they do is they turn around and sell your services, young prison inmate, to other companies. They pay you 50 cents an hour while those private prisons are making billions. See, they're not telling you this. Your homeboys don't know this. There's a crab in the barrel mentality. It's a rites of passage to go to jail, to go to prison. I'll tell you, the angriest that I've ever been in my life, and I've had some angry moments, is that I went to jail for back child support, which I shouldn't have been. I was proud that I had never had to do that. And because of someone's evilness and anger, they caused me to go to jail for 6 days for back child support. It's not a rites of passage. It's not. It's not something that every black person needs to experience, every young black man. And now more and more black women are going through the same process. These gangs are no good for you. These gangs are no good for our children and our future. Yet we continue to allow them to be the gods of our communities. It's time for us to push back. It's time for us to say, let's flip the script here. I applaud the HBCUs for taking a stand on what we should be. We shouldn't be talking about, the white universities. We are not white universities. We're not judged by the same standard as white universities. You should know that every time they shoot a black man down in the street. By now you've seen the shooting that went on in Wisconsin. Ben Crump talked about this very same video that I spoke of last week, where the white boy had attacked this white cop, and the white cop took off running. When another cop showed up, they subdued the white boy and arrested him. Here were four cops who, whatever reasons, didn't want to subdue this guy. They shot him dead in the middle of the street. I'm just saying to you that we're not judged by the same standard that they are. And we should have different standards. In fact, we should have higher standards. And those were the standards that we had when I was in school, as we see it. Go and look at that video. It speaks volumes of what our mentalities were then as opposed to what young black mentalities are today. And when I start doing my seminars, that particular video is going to be part of that seminar. Because we need to set a standard. We're tired. We've got to make sure that our race continues to thrive. They've got to be smart. They've got to be educated. And we've got to each one teach one. And that's what we're going to do. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's what we must do. Thank you for listening to the show. I appreciate you joining me. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Please, 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 you've heard me talk a lot about Blue Chip Down. I am very proud of it. You've got to go out and you've got to buy that book. You've got to buy it because it speaks. It's more of a, all the things that I write is about a message. But this is certainly a message that we all must begin to understand, that is important for us as black people to set the standard. Okay? It is not for us to follow the crowd. You got to make sure that you are leading the crowd. That's what I told my kids. That's what I tell these young black kids every time I go out and speak to them. That we have to lead the crowd. Okay? Now, here's a quote that I'm going to leave you with. A person who has been taught inferiority does not need chains. Doubt will keep them exactly where power wants them. That's by Franz Franer. Y'all have a good day. It's Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.